The kinetics of shoulder flexion, structural aspects. Other than shortened muscles, another cause of movement limitation in shoulder flexion is bone structure. Shoulder flexion can be divided into two main parts. 1. Flexion in the glenohumeral GH joint. At least 120 degrees of the movement are performed in this part of the shoulder joint. 2. The rest of the movement, up to 180 degrees, is performed in the scapula. Combined movement in the scapula, exterior rotation plus posterior rotation. In other words, full flexion range depends on a number of joints and not only on the shoulder joint. The first part of the movement ends the movement the humerus touches the clavicle and the acromion. At this meeting, the two bones compression occurs. From this joint, the scapula and the clavicle contributes to movement. Posterior rotation, upward rotation, and posterior tilt. The scapula performs combined posterior rotation and exterior rotation. The clavicle retracts slightly with retraction and posterior rotation. Actually, it is drawn by the scapula through the corticoclavicular ligament. Movement of the scapula and the clavicle makes further flexion possible, up to 180 degrees. By examining two patients with no pathology and with long flexible muscles, we can see the difference in their flexion ability. Why? In addition to muscle balance and/or pathologies, morphological studies have found difference in the structure of the acromion in people. In other words, structurally, flexion differs among people according to the structure of their acromion. How does this happen? In the literature, 3 types of acromion can be found. It can be seen that the first part of the flexion among people with type 1 flat acromions is greater than the range of flexion among people with type 3 hooked acromion. The range of flexion in the type 1 acromion will be greater than for type 3 acromion. In order to reach the flexion range of type 1, type 3 must compensate with a very large movement of the scapula, which is not always possible. Even if the muscles are very long and flexible, in a condition of early compression, the range of flexion will still be limited, relative to someone with latter compression. If we discern partial range in the shoulder, how can we know that the limitation is structural or muscular? We use the ability to hear it. Compression, a type of pinching in the specific area where the bones meet, feels different than the stretching of the muscle. In a muscle that stretches, we feel elasticity. Compression is not elastic. It is the junction of the two bones.